A recent snowfall had bleached everything white, and I was the only guest at the inn. "What brings you up here at this time of year?" the clerk at the reception desk asked me. "No idea," I said. I couldn't sleep that night and drank most of the fifth of bourbon I had packed in my travel bag. At first light, I got back into my rental car and started driving. I followed the road east, a narrow two-lane blacktop that snaked its way down a hill and around a curvy bend. Once that bend was negotiated, the payoff was spectacular. For there in front of me was a frozen expanse, shaded in aquamarine, a vast sheltered bay fringed by iced woodlands, with a low-lying fog hovering above its glaciated surface. I braked, then got out of the car. A boreal wind was blowing. It chafed my face and nettled my eyes. But I forced myself to walk down to the water's edge. A meager sun was attempting to light up the world. Its wattage was so low that the bay remained dappled in mist, making it seem both ethereal and haunted. Though the cold was brutal, I couldn't take my gaze off this spectral landscape, until another blast of wind made me turn away from it. And at that precise moment, I saw the cottage. It was positioned on a small plot of land, elevated above the bay. Its design was very basic, a one-story structure, sided and weather-beaten white clapboard. Its little driveway was empty. There were no lights on inside, but there was a for sale sign positioned out in front. I pulled out my notebook, writing down the name and number of the Wiscasset real estate agent who was handling it. I was going to approach it, but the cold finally forced me back to the car. I drove off in search of a diner that served breakfast. I discovered one on the outskirts of town. Then I found the real estate agent's office on the main street. 30 minutes after I crossed his threshold, we were back at the cottage. "Now, I have to warn you that the place is a bit primitive," the agent said, "but it's got great bones, and of course it's right on the water. Better yet, it's an estate sale. It's been on the market for 16 months, so the family will accept a reasonable offer." The agent was right. The cottage was the wrong side of rustic, but it had been winterized, and thanks to Dad, the $220,000 asking price was now affordable. I offered $185 on the spot. By the end of the morning, the offer had been accepted. The next morning, I had, courtesy of the real estate agent, met a local contractor who was willing to redo the cottage within my budget of $60,000. By the end of the same day, I finally called home and had to answer a lot of questions from my wife, Jan, about why I had been out of contact for the last 72 hours. Because on the way back from my father's funeral, I bought a house. The silence that followed this statement was an extended one, and I realize now the moment when her patience with me understandably cracked.
"Please tell me this is a joke,"
she said. But it wasn't a joke. It was a declaration of sorts, and one with a considerable amount of subtext to it. Jan understood that. Just as I knew that once I informed her of this impulse buy, the landscape between us would be irreparably damaged. Yet I still went ahead and bought the place, which in turn must mean that I really did want things to turn out this way. But that moment of permanent schism didn't happen for another 8 months. A marriage, especially one of 20 years' duration, rarely ends with a decisive bang. It's more like all the phases you go through when confronting a terminal illness. Anger, denial, pleading, more anger, denial. Though we never seem to reach the acceptance part of the journey. Instead, during an August weekend when we came up to the now renovated cottage, Jan chose to tell me that for her, the marriage was over, and she left town on the next bus. Not with a bang, just with a subdued sadness. I stayed on at the cottage for the rest of the summer, only returning once to our house.